I never thought a prank could turn into the most life-altering experience in my existence. But then again, I never thought I'd be telling a story like this at all. It started in the most ordinary way, just a harmless idea thrown around by a group of friends who loved to joke at my expense. I had always been the quiet one in the group, the guy who laughed along but never really pushed back, and I suppose that made me an easy target. On that evening, we were hanging out at my friend Kyle's house, a Friday night filled with video games, soda cans littering the table, and the kind of restless energy that only comes from a group of people trying to find something entertaining to do. Somewhere between teasing each other about our terrible gaming skills and arguing about who would order the pizza, Kyle's girlfriend, Marissa, leaned in with a mischievous sparkle in her eyes. "You know what would be hilarious?" she said, her voice carrying just enough authority to make everyone pause. "We should totally dress you up, Alex. Like, full-on makeover. I've got half a closet of stuff upstairs." At first, I laughed because it sounded absurd, something that couldn't possibly be taken seriously. But the way everyone reacted, the chorus of amused gasps, the smirks and nudges, told me they were already on board. "Yeah, let's do it," Kyle chimed in, grinning at me as though he could already picture me in a dress. "Come on, man, don't chicken out. It'll be hilarious. We'll get pictures." My immediate reaction was to protest, of course. I shook my head, waving my hands in mock defense, but inside there was this weird mix of embarrassment and something else I couldn't quite name. Maybe curiosity, maybe dread. "I'm not letting you put me in a dress," I said, trying to sound firm, but my voice cracked slightly and gave me away. They all pounced on that hesitation like predators sensing weakness. Marissa clapped her hands. "It's settled. You're getting the full treatment. Makeup, outfit, hair. I want to see if I can make you pass as a girl." The laughter that followed stung a little, but not because they were being cruel. It was because part of me couldn't help but wonder. Could they really do that? Could I really look that different? The thought lodged itself in my mind and refused to leave, even as I tried to shake it off. Before I could come up with a stronger protest, Marissa was already tugging me up the stairs, her excitement bubbling over. My heart raced, and each step felt like I was heading into some strange unknown, a place I never asked to go but couldn't seem to stop moving toward. Marissa's room was nothing like the places I usually found myself in. It smelled faintly of perfume, a sweet floral scent that hit me as soon as she opened the door. Her room was bright, filled with soft colors, posters on the wall, makeup scattered across her vanity in neat but chaotic piles, and a closet that looked like it could swallow me whole. I stood awkwardly in the doorway, my hands jammed into my pockets, wishing I could shrink into the floorboards. "Don't just stand there," she said, pulling me toward the vanity chair. "Sit. Let me work my magic." The word magic echoed in my head. I didn't believe for a second that she could pull this off, but the anticipation made my chest feel tight. I sat down, trying to keep my face neutral, though I'm sure the nervous twitch of my mouth betrayed me. She pulled my hair back with practiced ease, muttering to herself about what colors would suit me. When she picked up the first brush, my heart skipped. The sensation of soft bristles sweeping across my skin was strange, both ticklish and soothing at the same time. She hummed while she worked, completely in her element, and I couldn't help but watch in the mirror as little by little, my reflection started to blur into someone I didn't recognize. A layer of foundation evened out my skin tone, blush brought a soft glow, and eyeliner gave my eyes a sharper, more pronounced look. With every detail she added, I felt a mix of unease and fascination. The laughter and footsteps of my friends downstairs drifted up faintly, reminding me this was still a joke, a prank meant to entertain them. But as the transformation continued, I realized this didn't feel like a joke to me anymore. This felt real. "You're taking this pretty well," Marissa teased, brushing a final stroke of mascara across my lashes. "Most guys would be freaking out right now." "I'm not freaking out," I muttered, though my voice was tight. "Good," she said, flashing me a smile. Then she went to the closet, rifling through hangers with quick, decisive motions. Now for the fun part. I thought makeup was the fun part, but the way she pulled out a soft blue dress, holding it up against me with a thoughtful tilt of her head, made me realize I was in far deeper than I expected. "This will look adorable on you," she declared. "Go on, put it on. The guys are going to lose it." My palms went clammy. The thought of stepping into that dress felt impossible, yet somehow inevitable. I hesitated for what felt like forever, my throat dry, and then, before I could overthink it, my hands reached out and took it from her. The fabric felt soft and slippery in my hands, almost too delicate for me to hold. I stared at it, trying to convince myself this was just harmless fun, a prank I'd laugh about later. But the longer I stood there with the dress draped over my arms, the more it felt like a turning point, like if I slipped it on, something inside me would change forever. Marissa noticed my hesitation and gave me a playful shove toward the bathroom. "Go on, shy boy. I'll give you a minute. Don't worry, it's just us up here." Her tone was teasing, but underneath it I caught something gentler, like she understood the gravity of the moment better than I did. I stepped inside, closed the door, and leaned against it, my chest rising and falling too quickly. The mirror above the sink reflected a face half covered in makeup, not quite me anymore, but not someone else either. Slowly, almost ceremoniously, I pulled off my shirt and jeans, folding them on the counter as though I'd need them later to prove this was only temporary. Then I slipped the dress over my head. The sensation startled me. It was light, airy, and it flowed down against my body in a way I had never experienced with clothes before. The hem brushed my knees, and for a moment I froze, staring at the reflection in the mirror. It was surreal. The neckline framed my shoulders, the color brought out warmth in my skin, and suddenly, I wasn't looking at Alex the quiet guy anymore. I was looking at a stranger who felt oddly familiar, like a version of me I had ignored all my life. My stomach twisted with a mix of fear and exhilaration. When I stepped out of the bathroom, Marissa clapped her hands together in delight. "Oh my God, that's perfect." She circled me like an artist admiring her work, adjusting the hem, tugging the sleeves into place, fussing with every little detail. "You'd never guess, seriously. With the right hair, you'll totally pass." Her words made my ears burn. I wanted to brush it off as exaggeration, but I couldn't deny the spark of something that flickered inside me when I heard it. Then she pulled me over to the vanity again, this time grabbing a wig from the corner of her closet. I blinked. "You have wigs?" "Of course," she said with a grin. "I do theater sometimes. Trust me, this one will work." She slipped the wig over my head, adjusting it carefully until a cascade of chestnut brown hair framed my face. My breath caught. The transformation was startling. The person in the mirror looked nothing like the version of me I carried in my head. It was unsettling but also mesmerizing. Marissa leaned in close, studying me with narrowed eyes, then finally nodded in satisfaction. "Yeah," she said softly. "You're ready to show them." My pulse spiked. Show them? I wasn't sure I could move, let alone walk downstairs like this. But before I could protest, Marissa took me by the wrist and led me toward the stairs. Each step down the staircase felt like a thunderclap in my chest. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure everyone could hear it. The laughter and chatter from the living room grew louder with every step, a reminder that soon there would be no hiding. Marissa glanced back at me with a reassuring smile, squeezing my wrist as if to say, "You'll be fine." But nothing about this felt fine. When we reached the bottom, the room went silent. For pairs of eyes turned toward me, and for a brief, terrifying second, no one said a word. Then Kyle let out a loud laugh, clapping his hands together. "No way. Dude, I can't believe you actually did it." The others joined in, the room filling with laughter, whistles, and mock applause. "You look, wow, almost convincing," one of them said between chuckles. Their words should have stung, but instead, I felt a strange wave of relief. They were laughing because it was a prank, because that's what this was supposed to be. It gave me something to cling to, even as I stood there in borrowed hair and clothes, feeling more exposed than I ever had in my life. Marissa guided me into the center of the room, like I was on display. "What do you think?" she asked, her voice full of pride, as though I were her creation. The guys kept joking, tossing out exaggerated compliments and teasing remarks, but I caught something different in the way one of them stared at me. His laughter came slower, almost hesitant, as though he wasn't quite sure what he was looking at. That sent a shiver down my spine. "Spin around," Cal said, grinning. "Let's see the full effect." I wanted to say no, to retreat back up the stairs, but instead I found myself turning slowly, the hem of the dress swishing lightly against my legs. The motion felt both humiliating and strangely natural, as if my body was responding in ways my mind hadn't caught up to yet. More laughter followed, but it no longer felt entirely directed at me. It felt like they were reacting to the situation itself, not to who I was in that moment. And then something shifted. Instead of feeling like the butt of a joke, I realized I was holding their attention in a way I never had before. For once, all eyes were on me, not because I was the quiet guy in a corner, but because I had become someone unexpected, someone they couldn't ignore. It was disorienting, almost intoxicating. My hands trembled, and I clasped them together to steady myself. This was supposed to be humiliating, but why did I feel something else entirely? Why did part of me like it? The night carried on, and though the laughter never really stopped, the mood began to shift in subtle ways I couldn't ignore. At first, they treated me like the punchline of their prank, snapping pictures on their phones and egging me on to pose. I forced a few awkward smiles, trying to play along, but the strangeness of it all was starting to sink into me deeper than I expected. Every time I glanced in the mirror across the room, I caught myself staring longer than I meant to. The reflection looking back didn't feel like some random disguise anymore. It felt like someone who had always been there, waiting just beneath the surface, now suddenly given the chance to breathe. When Marissa handed me a pair of flats and insisted I put them on, the room erupted with laughter again, but she leaned close as I slipped them on and whispered, "You're actually pulling this off better than I thought." Her words made my chest tighten. I wanted to dismiss them as more of her playful teasing, but the way she said it, with that softness in her voice, made it sound like a genuine compliment. One of the guys, Aaron, tilted his head and studied me with an expression I couldn't read. "Man, this is kind of freaky," he said. "You actually all look pretty real." The others laughed again, but I noticed the way he quickly glanced away after saying it, as though he'd revealed more than he intended. I didn't know what to do with that. The rest of the evening blurred into a strange mix of games, jokes, and me being treated as this curious spectacle. They called me Alexandra half-jokingly, and though I rolled my eyes at it, hearing the name out loud stirred something inside me that I couldn't deny. At one point, Cal suggested we all take a group photo. I stood wedged between them, smiling nervously, feeling both trapped and strangely at ease. When the flash went off, I realized that moment would be frozen forever, not just in their memories, but in mine too. As the night wore on, the others grew distracted with their usual antics, but I kept catching glimpses of myself in the mirror, drawn back to it again and again. The more I looked, the more I felt unsettled, not because I hated what I saw, but because I didn't. In fact, I felt a strange ache in my chest at the thought of peeling it all away, of returning to my usual self as though none of this had ever happened. That thought alone scared me more than the laughter of my friends. Because deep down, I was starting to wonder, what if I didn't want this to end? Eventually, the group began to lose interest in their prank and drifted back into their usual rhythm, snacking on chips, shouting at video games, arguing over music. I sat on the couch in the corner, feeling half a world away from them, even though I was in the same room. The dress still draped softly around me, the wig hung in perfect waves over my shoulders, and my makeup, though starting to feel a little heavy, hadn't smudged. Every time I moved, every shift of fabric against my skin reminded me that I was still in this strange, new version of myself. And the strangest part? I didn't want to change back. Marissa plopped down next to me, holding a soda, her eyes sparkling as she took in my expression. "You're quiet," she said. "Quieter than usual, even. What's going on in that head of yours?" I hesitated, fumbling for words I wasn't sure I wanted to say out loud. "It's just weird," I admitted. "Seeing myself like this. I don't know how to explain it." She studied me, her grin softening into something more serious. "Weird in a bad way?" Or weird in a not-so-bad way? The question lingered in the air like a challenge. I swallowed hard, unsure how honest I dared to be. Not so bad, I muttered finally, almost whispering it, as though saying it too loudly might break whatever fragile spell I was under. Marissa leaned back, a satisfied smile spreading across her face. I thought so. You're not the first guy I've done this to, you know. But you're the first one who actually looks comfortable. Her words rattled me. Comfortable. That was the last thing I should have been, sitting in front of my friends dressed like this. But wasn't that the truth? I wasn't just tolerating it. I was leaning into it, feeling a warmth in my chest I couldn't ignore. Across the room, Aaron's eyes flicked toward me again, quickly darting away when I caught him. It sent a jolt through me, equal parts confusing and unsettling. Was he still thinking about what he'd said earlier, that I looked pretty real? Or was I just imagining it? As the night wound down, and one by one people started leaving, I felt an odd pang of disappointment. When Kyle announced that everyone should get some sleep, I realized the prank was officially over. Soon I'd be expected to peel off the makeup, step out of the dress, and go back to being the same old Alex. But as I followed Marissa upstairs, something inside me whispered that going back might not be as simple as slipping into my old clothes again. Something had shifted, something I couldn't undo. And though I didn't fully understand it yet, I could feel it deep down. This prank had opened a door inside me, and closing it wasn't going to be easy. Upstairs, Marissa handed me a bundle of my folded clothes, the ones I'd left in the bathroom earlier. Here, she said gently, almost reluctantly. You can change back. I stood there holding them, staring down at the familiar fabric like it was some kind of anchor to reality. My jeans, my t-shirt, they should have felt like safety, but instead, they looked dull and lifeless compared to what I was wearing now. My throat tightened. Do I have to? I asked before I could stop myself. Marissa raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised, but not mocking. You don't want to? The question pierced me. I wanted to say no. I wanted to admit that slipping out of the dress felt like erasing something I wasn't ready to lose. But I couldn't form the words. Instead, I shrugged, trying to play it off. I don't know. It's just different. She studied me for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she set my clothes aside on her bed and said softly, You don't have to if you don't want to. I mean, the guys won't see you now. It's just us. That small act of kindness nearly undid me. I sank into her desk chair, staring at my reflection in the vanity mirror. The makeup was still intact, the wig slightly askew but easy to fix. I tilted my head, adjusting a strand of hair, and, for the first time, I didn't see a prank. I saw its possibility. Marissa sat cross-legged on the bed, watching me with quiet amusement. It's kind of wild, isn't it? She said. How a little makeup and fabric can mess with your head like this. Mess with my head, I repeated, almost bitterly. Yeah, that's one way to put it. But deep down, I knew it wasn't just my head. It was something deeper, something I hadn't dared to look at before. The thought scared me, but it also filled me with a strange, restless energy. Marissa leaned forward, her voice lowering as if she were sharing a secret. You know, if you ever wanted to try this again, not as a prank, I wouldn't mind helping. You don't have to decide now. Just think about it. The room went quiet after that, and I sat frozen in my chair, staring at myself in the mirror until my reflection blurred. Her words echoed in my mind, louder than the laughter I'd heard downstairs, louder than my own doubts. Not as a prank. That idea lodged itself in me like a seed, and even though I told myself it was ridiculous, part of me already knew it was going to grow. That night, when I finally lay down on the makeshift mattress Marissa had set up for me on the floor of her room, I couldn't sleep. The house had gone quiet, the kind of silence that pressed in on you from every corner, yet my mind was loud, unbearably loud. I kept replaying the evening in my head, the laughter, the stares, the feel of the dress swaying against my legs. The way Marissa had said those words, not as a prank. I turned on my side, facing the mirror across the room. Even in the dim light, I could still make out the faint outline of myself, wig slightly tangled, makeup smudged but still clinging to its shape. I looked less like Alex, the person everyone thought I was, and more like someone I hadn't met yet. Someone who felt both foreign and uncannily familiar. A knot twisted in my stomach. What scared me most wasn't that I looked different. It was how right it felt, how much I wanted to hold on to it. The idea of washing it all off in the morning filled me with dread, like I'd be erasing something precious before I'd had the chance to understand it. At some point, exhaustion pulled me under, but even my dreams were colored by the night's events. I dreamed of walking into a crowd, dressed the way I was now, and no one laughing, no one pointing. Instead, they simply accepted me as I was, like it wasn't strange at all. I woke with a start, the early light of dawn streaming through the curtains, and my chest ached with a longing I couldn't name. By the time everyone else stirred awake, I'd already made up my mind. I couldn't just let this vanish into memory. Maybe I didn't understand it fully. Maybe I was terrified of what it meant, but I needed to know more. I needed to try again. When Marissa caught my eye that morning, she didn't tease me like I expected. She just gave me a knowing look, as if she could already read the decision etched across my face. "We'll talk later," she whispered when the others weren't listening. Her words steadied me. For the first time, I realized I wasn't alone in this. Someone else had seen what I couldn't admit to myself, and she wasn't judging me for it. That small assurance carried me through the awkward goodbyes, through the return to my usual clothes, through the hollow laughter I forced when Kyle joked about Alexandra one last time. I played along, but inside, something had shifted permanently. Because I knew, without a doubt, that prank night wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The following week felt like living two separate lives. By day, I was just Alex again, quiet, ordinary, blending into the background like I always had. But at night, lying awake in my room, I couldn't stop thinking about that version of me who had stood in front of the mirror in Marissa's room. The memory clung to me with a kind of sweetness and a sting, and no matter how much I tried to shake it, it wouldn't fade. The photos my friends had taken started circulating in our group chat. At first, I panicked, expecting them to be shared beyond us, but surprisingly, no one seemed intent on humiliating me. They mostly laughed among themselves, throwing in jokes like, "Our new girl Alex is ready for prom." I played along, pretending to roll my eyes at the comments, but every time I saw my image, the blue dress, the chestnut wig, the carefully painted face, I felt a pull. Instead of embarrassment, I found myself staring, tracing the lines of that version of me, wondering why I felt more connected to that reflection than my real one. One night, Marissa messaged me privately. "So, have you been thinking about what I said?" My fingers hovered over the keyboard, my chest tightening. After a long pause, I finally typed, "Yeah. I can't stop thinking about it." Her reply came almost instantly. "Then let's do it again.
Just you and me this time."
No audience, no jokes. For real. The weight of her words hit me hard. For real. This wasn't a prank anymore. This was a choice. And though part of me trembled at the thought of what it meant, another part, louder, braver, was already saying yes. We set a day, the following Saturday afternoon. The moment I agreed, it was like a countdown began inside me. All week long, my mind was split between dread and excitement. I kept imagining what it would feel like to step back into that world again, to not have to laugh it off or pretend it was just a joke. This time, it would be different. When Saturday finally came, I found myself walking to Marissa's house with a knot of nerves in my stomach. The autumn air was cool, the sky pale with drifting clouds, and every step felt heavy with meaning. When she opened the door and smiled at me, I nearly backed out then and there. But something steadied me, the memory of how I had felt that night, how alive I had been in a way I couldn't describe. "Ready?" she asked, her tone light, but her eyes searching mine. I swallowed hard and nodded. "Yeah," I whispered. This wasn't a prank anymore. This was me stepping into something real. Marissa's room looked just as it had the night of the prank, but this time the air felt different. There was no laughter drifting up from downstairs, no crowd waiting to judge or joke. Just me, her, and the quiet hum of possibility. She shut the door behind us and turned with a small smile. "Okay," she said, almost businesslike, though her eyes carried warmth. "First things first, do you want the same look as last time, or should we try something new?" The question caught me off guard. The idea that there could be choices, that I wasn't just playing along anymore, made my stomach flip. "Something new," I said, surprising even myself. Her smile widened. "I was hoping you'd say that." She sat me down in the vanity chair again, and as soon as the brush touched my skin, all the tension I'd been carrying began to melt. The strokes were familiar now, no longer shocking but soothing, like stepping back into a place I secretly belonged. I closed my eyes and let her work, feeling the layers of foundation, the careful tracing of eyeliner, the soft flutter of mascara. With every touch, the quiet voice inside me grew louder, whispering truths I wasn't ready to face but couldn't deny anymore. When I opened my eyes again, I barely recognized myself. This time, she had gone with warmer tones, soft peach on my lips, a delicate shimmer on my eyelids, a gentle sweep of blush that made me look alive. Not like Alex in disguise, but like someone else entirely. "Wow," Marissa said softly, almost to herself. "You're even more convincing this time." Her words sent a shiver through me. I turned my head, studying the reflection, and for the first time, I didn't feel like I was pretending. I felt like I was seeing a hidden truth uncovered. Marissa moved to the closet, pulling out a different dress, a cream-colored one with delicate patterns along the hem. "Try this," she said, handing it to me with a kind of reverence, as if the garment itself held importance. I changed in the bathroom, and when I stepped back out, her eyes widened. "Beautiful," she whispered. I froze, the word hanging in the air between us. Beautiful. No one had ever called me that before. My chest tightened, my throat constricted, and for a moment I couldn't speak. She adjusted the straps on my shoulders, fixed a loose strand of the wig, and then stood back to admire her work. "There," she said softly. "Now it feels right." And it did. More than anything had in a long, long time. The hours that followed slipped away like a dream I didn't want to wake from. Marissa didn't treat me like a joke, didn't laugh or tease. She treated me like this was normal, like I had every right to be sitting there in her room in a cream-colored dress and carefully applied makeup. That small shift in how she acted made all the difference. We experimented with different hairstyles using the wig, brushing it into braids, then letting it fall in loose waves again. She even showed me how to walk more gracefully in the flats she lent me, laughing softly when I stumbled, but never in a way that made me feel small. "You're a quick learner," she said, and I couldn't help but glow under her encouragement. At one point, I caught myself in the mirror, standing with one hand on my hip, the other brushing back a lock of hair. It wasn't deliberate, just instinct. But the way I moved, the posture, the expression, it all looked so natural that I startled myself. That couldn't be me, and yet it was. Marissa noticed the way I froze and tilted her head thoughtfully. "You see it now, don't you?" I swallowed, unable to look away from the reflection. "See what?" "That it's not just dress up for you," she said gently. "It feels real, like it belongs." Her words hit me like a truth I'd been running from. I wanted to deny it, laugh it off, but my chest ached with the weight of recognition. "I don't know what it means," I admitted, my voice cracking. "You don't have to know right now," she said, her tone calm, steady. "You just have to admit that it means something." The silence stretched between us, filled with the thudding of my heart. And then finally I nodded.
"Yeah,
"It does." Marissa gave me a soft smile and squeezed my hand. "That's all you need to start." The rest of the afternoon was a blur of small, intimate moments, her teaching me how to remove the makeup without irritating my skin, helping me fold the dress carefully instead of crumpling it like an old shirt, encouraging me to keep at least one photo of myself for me, and not just for the jokes of our friends. By the time I left her house, carrying that single printed photo she had slipped into my pocket, I felt both terrified and exhilarated. Terrified of what I might discover if I kept going down this path. Exhilarated because I already knew I couldn't turn back. The photo Marissa had given me became my most guarded secret. I kept it tucked in the back of a notebook on my desk, hidden beneath scribbled pages of homework and doodles, but every night I would find myself pulling it out, staring at it under the soft glow of my desk lamp. The girl in the picture didn't look like Alex. She didn't look like a prank. She looked real. Some nights, I would trace the edges of the photo with my finger, my chest tightening with questions I didn't have answers to. Who was she? Why did she feel more like me than the boy everyone else saw? Days blurred into weeks, and though life on the outside stayed the same, classes, hanging out with friends, pretending nothing had changed, inside, I was restless. The more I tried to bury the feelings, the stronger they grew. It was like trying to ignore a fire by turning your back on it. Marissa noticed, of course. One afternoon, she messaged me, "Want to come over again this weekend?" No pressure.
Just thought you might want to.
I didn't even hesitate.
Yes.
When Saturday arrived, the nervous excitement felt different than before. The first time had been a prank. The second had been an experiment. But this time it felt like something deeper, a step toward a truth I couldn't avoid forever. Marissa welcomed me with her usual warmth, and without much discussion, we slipped back into the familiar rhythm. Makeup brushes, careful strokes of color, hair arranged just right. But she also did something new. She let me help. She guided my hand as I traced eyeliner across my lid, steadying me when I fumbled. "You'll get the hang of it," she said encouragingly. It was harder than I expected, but the pride I felt when I looked in the mirror and saw what I had done, what I had created, was overwhelming. For the first time, it wasn't just something happening to me. It was something I was actively part of. When the transformation was complete, she let me choose from her closet. My fingers lingered on a soft cardigan and a simple skirt, nothing as bold as the dresses before. I put them on, and the reflection that looked back at me felt almost casual. Every day. And that was what made it hit me hardest. I didn't just look like someone playing dress up. I looked like someone who could walk outside, sit at a cafe, and simply exist. Marissa studied me from across the room, her voice gentle when she spoke. "You look like yourself," she said. "Not a joke. Not a costume. Just you." The words nearly undid me, because deep down I already knew she was right. The days after that third transformation were the hardest yet, because now the longing was impossible to ignore. Before, I could pretend it was curiosity, a fleeting thrill. But now, every time I caught my reflection in a store window or glanced at the photo hidden in my notebook, I felt a sharp ache of recognition. Like I was living half a life, waiting for the other half to begin. I tried to distract myself with schoolwork, with friends, with anything that would anchor me to the ordinary routine of Alex. But the more I fought it, the more it consumed me. Even little things started to feel different. I caught myself paying attention to clothes I'd never noticed before, skirts swaying as classmates walked by, the effortless way some girls styled their hair, the confidence in how they carried themselves. I found myself wondering not what they looked like, but what it would feel like to be seen that way. Marissa, ever perceptive, didn't push me. Instead, she simply made space. "Whenever you want," she'd say. "You don't need a reason. Just come." Her patience was a lifeline. One evening, when I showed up at her house again, she surprised me with a small bag. "I picked up a few things for you," she said almost casually, as if it wasn't a monumental gesture. Inside were simple items, a soft sweater, a pair of leggings, some makeup basics. Nothing extravagant, but they were mine. Not borrowed, not a prank.
Mine.
The weight of that gift sank into me, leaving me speechless. I held the sweater to my chest, the fabric warm against my skin, and for the first time I felt like this wasn't just an experiment I could leave behind. It was becoming part of who I was. That night, dressed in clothes that belonged to me, not borrowed from her closet, I stood in front of her mirror and realized how far I'd already come. The reflection no longer startled me. Instead, it calmed me. I wasn't pretending anymore. I was peeling away layers of denial, uncovering something that had been waiting all along. Marissa leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching me quietly. When I finally met her gaze in the mirror, she said softly, "You look happy." And for the first time, I didn't argue. Because she was right. I was. Happiness, however, came tangled with fear. The more time I spent exploring this side of myself, the more I realized how fragile it all felt. At Marissa's house, in the safety of her room, I could breathe. I could exist. But outside, in the world where everyone knew me as Alex, the quiet boy, it felt impossible. The tension grew until it started to wear on me. I'd catch myself drifting off in class, doodling skirts in the margins of my notebooks, staring too long at my reflection in bathroom mirrors. My friends noticed my distraction, but they chalked it up to stress or lack of sleep. None of them could imagine the truth, that I was carrying a secret too big to share. Marissa was the only one who knew, the only one who made it feel real. One evening, as I sat on her bed with my legs curled beneath me, she asked gently, "Have you thought about what this means for you? Beyond just us playing dress-up?" Her question made my stomach knot. "All the time," I admitted. "But I don't have answers. I don't even know where to start." "You don't need all the answers right now," she said. "Just start with what feels right. One step at a time." That advice stuck with me. Small steps. Not everything had to be decided at once. So I began with the smallest of things. Painting my nails clear when I was at home, just to see the subtle shine in the light. Practicing makeup in the privacy of my room late at night, wiping it off before anyone could see. Wearing the sweater Marissa had given me when I was alone, hugging it tight like armor. And slowly, I realized the fear didn't erase the happiness. It existed alongside it. Fear was loud, but happiness was steady, patient, always waiting for me to return to it. One night, while Marissa brushed out the wig and I sat watching, I whispered, "I don't think this is just a phase." She looked up, her expression tender but firm. "I know."
I've known for a while.
Her certainty shook me, not because she was wrong, but because she was right. In that moment, I realized this wasn't something I could tuck away as a prank gone too far. It was bigger than that. It was me. Admitting it to myself didn't suddenly make everything easy. If anything, it made the road ahead feel more uncertain. But at the same time, I felt lighter, like I had finally stopped running from a truth that had been chasing me since that night of the prank. The weeks that followed became a quiet journey of discovery. With Marissa's help, I built a small collection of clothes that were just mine: sweaters, skirts, simple tops. Nothing flashy, nothing that would draw too much attention if anyone stumbled across them, but enough to remind me that this wasn't a dream. These things existed. I existed. The mirror in my room, once something I barely glanced at, became a place of refuge. Each time I transformed, even in small ways, I saw myself more clearly. Not Alex in disguise, not a joke my friends could laugh at, but someone real. Someone I was learning to accept. Of course, I kept it secret. To my friends, I was still Alex, the quiet one. The photo from the prank still surfaced in our group chat from time to time, always with a laugh. I learned to laugh along too, but inside, it didn't sting anymore. They didn't realize that what they thought was a joke had opened a door I could never close again. One evening, as I sat in Marissa's room brushing out the wig by myself, she looked at me with a kind of pride in her eyes. "You've changed so much since that first night," she said softly. I paused, meeting her gaze. "I feel like I have. Like I can't go back." "You don't have to," she replied simply. Her words settled into me like a promise. I didn't know what the future would look like. I didn't know how or when I'd tell others, or even what I wanted to call myself outside of these walls. But I knew this. The prank that was supposed to embarrass me had instead revealed me. As I left her house that night, the autumn air cool against my skin, I thought back to the terrified boy who had slipped into a blue dress for the first time. He had no idea what was waiting on the other side of that moment. I did now. And as much as it scared me, it thrilled me more. Because that prank wasn't just a joke, it was the beginning of me finding myself. And that, more than anything, had changed me forever.